welcome back. Today we want to address again chapter 13 of John Owen's book, The Mortification of Sin. Last time we talked about that chapter, and we said that one of the things that Owen wants to emphasize in this chapter is to make sure that you are not speaking peace to yourself, but that the Holy Spirit is speaking peace to you. And in the second half of this chapter, he says, well, how can I know? How can I know if I'm speaking peace to me or if the Holy Spirit is speaking peace to me? And he has a few pointers, a few ways for us to helpfully think about this. One is that you find yourself going back to the sin right away. If you find yourself, you engage in a sin, you think you deal with it, you're like, okay, Jesus saves, and then you find yourself just very quickly going back into the sin, and you just find that pattern going again and again and again, probably you ought to think, you know what, I'm not sure the Holy Spirit is dealing with me on this. I think I'm just dealing with me on this, and I'm going to need to figure out how to do this differently, figure out how to get the Holy Spirit involved. The second step that he suggests then is that you wait. The Lord means for you to wait on him. He doesn't mean for you to just sort of rush through your life with you made a mistake and now you address yourself and now you get yourself back in order. He means to address you, and sometimes you may need to patiently wait on him to address you. Again, sometimes in our shame over sin, we just want to be done with it. Okay, I got caught. Okay, I shouldn't have done that. Okay, I'm in trouble here. Let's rush this process along. Let's get right back to life as normal. And maybe the Lord means for you to spend some time thinking about the sin that you have committed and how costly that sin is and how wicked the sin is, so that God, by his help, will bring you out of that sin. And so the second way that you may find yourself dealing with it yourself and not by the Spirit is that you're able to deal with sin quickly and you're right back in business. And unfortunately, too often, it's right back into the business of sinning again. And so that comes along the third step. The third step that Owen wants you to think about is you can tell the Spirit is working then. If it isn't happening quickly, you're waiting on the Lord. But also, when you wait on the Lord by the Spirit, you are brought to hate the sin and long to, as you consider the glory of the Lord, long to honor the Lord in the way that you live your life, right? So these two things go together, not just, I don't want to do it anymore, that sin is terrible. Sometimes we get that way. Sometimes we're like, you know what, I'm ashamed of that sin. I wish I hadn't done that sin. I can't believe I keep doing this sin. I keep embarrassing myself. And that's half the story, though. Half of the work that we expect or hoping the Spirit to do is to help us hate the sin. But the other half we also need is such a love for the Lord, such a grasp of his greatness and his great holiness and glory that we want to honor him and we want to do righteous things. We want to live righteously. And so this, if we can see that work is happening, right? The sin is being dealt with. We hate it. We want, by God's help, to not have anything to do with that sin for a very long time, maybe ever. Then we can perhaps think that the Spirit of God is in fact working in us. One other tip that Owen has in this chapter, not about to tell if the Spirit is working or if you're working, but rather just on generally how can you battle sin, is to say this. Look, if when you're battling sin, you're dealing with a particular sin in your life, and you feel bad about it and you're working on it, and yet there are other sins in your life that are, we might say, equally significant, and you're not working on that at all, then you have reason to believe the Holy Spirit isn't working in you. Because the Holy Spirit that hates the sin that you're working on also hates the sin you're not working on. And so if you can, with a clear conscience, ignore these sins over here while you are doing a little bit of work on these sins right here, then perhaps it's just you working, and you have not yet brought God by his Spirit in to address you. Because the Holy Spirit means to address all of your sin, not just the sin that's bothering your conscience here, but all the sin that's going on in your life. And if you don't see the Spirit of God addressing all your sin, then you ought to pray that God by his Spirit would address you and would work in your sin and help, by his power, help you to put away sin.